Greetings, humans, I'm Retrobot, and you are not. Ha ha hee hee ho ho. Here I go.
Oh!
Ouch. Pull me out.
Oh boy, Retrobot, it's closing time. Lights out. I'll pull you out tomorrow.
Hey, wait.
Greetings once again, all you shiny, pretty, happy people. This is Retro Ernest of Retro Electro Tech, and on the bench is the Panasonic SE-2600 combo unit. If you recall, in a recent video, probably about a few videos or so back from this one, I was evaluating two combo units. This Panasonic here with the BSR turntable and a Sony HP 485, I believe, and that had a Girard turntable in it. Okay, but the point is that if you recall, if you watched the video, if not, you can go back and check it out if you want. However, this was the unit that had the jammed control lever, the stop, start, and auto. So I'm in the process of evaluating that, or at least starting to. I haven't dove in deep yet, and the reason why I just decided to put on the brakes, and a lot of times, as far as video making is concerned, and being that I want to walk you guys through things a little bit more nowadays, for those of you interested in this sort of thing, I probably should start with some of the breakdown, some of the disassembly. So just let me kind of go back and reverse a little bit, because I'm not too far into it, and at the very least I'm going to point out how excuse me, to go about removing the turntable from the cabinet here, from the unit. Okay, and it's not all that complicated, but let me just reposition a few things, and I'll just demonstrate real fast, and then we'll get into the evaluation of this turntable as to why that mechanism is all jammed up. I actually don't know why yet, not entirely. I have an idea, but I'll go through the process of tracing out the problem and determining why things are bound up, jammed up, and all that. So let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so anyways, as we get into how to get this turntable out of the unit, out of the cabinet, let me first zoom in on this key component here, which is known as a transit screw, transit bolt, whatever, either or, and this is a retaining clip. Okay, and this retaining clip here just moves either parallel, runs in parallel to the bolt, as you can see, or you can swing it perpendicular. Okay, now when it's in this position here, perpendicular, this is what locks the turntable into place. And the whole purpose of a transit screw is that when it's, well, in transit, when you're moving the the unit to wherever you're moving it to, either from the store home or you're moving from house to house, or whatever the case, it doesn't matter. In order to keep this turntable from, I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit now. But in order to keep this turntable from bouncing around and all that, if you, from the top side of this turntable, that is, if you turn this screw counterclockwise, or for those of you across the pond, anti-clockwise, then that's what actually tightens this turntable in place, secures it in place so it doesn't bounce around. Okay, and when you rotate this clockwise, it tightens it. Okay, so it's in opposite of what we're used to in terms of nuts and bolts. Okay guys, so in regard to removing the turntable from the unit here, and as far as how you go about it via these transit screws and retainer clips, it's pretty simple. Now, I have this turntable oriented so that if I was just to flip it over and forward here, it would just drop right down on the base here. Okay, but anyways, this particular transit screw here, let me zoom into it. Okay, this one here is what drops into this little compartment over here, and this is where they got a little fancy schmancy with this setup here. Let me just kind of zoom in. There I am. So that retaining clip just kind of slides into this compartment, okay, when it's in its, let me zoom back over. Cool. So when it's in its parallel or vertical position, it just kind of slides into here. Now this one here, and if you were doing it, you would see what I'm talking about. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory once you're fiddling around with it. Now this one here is simply just a hole in the you know, in the cabinet. Not a big deal, and that's how most of them are. That's why I'm showing you guys how to remove one of these, because most of the time it's just a hole in there, and you know, when this is parallel, it'll just drop down into the hole here, excuse me, and then you'll just flip it perpendicular again and start turning the screw there on the top side counterclockwise, and it will tighten it down underneath. Okay, so that's really all there is to it. So there we go. So that's how I got it out of there. And then of course there was just a few little connectors, and you know, one of them is here for the power supply and all that jazz, and then the a couple of RCAs, and that's it. So anyways, let's get back to troubleshooting this mechanism over here. So let me go ahead and change views once again. Okay, let's get to diagnosing the problem as to why everything is jammed up in this area, as far as you know, in regard to the control knob, control lever. First off, what should be going on here is as follows. Okay, so the position, now let me just move this aside here. What you see underneath here is the actual lever itself, the bottom of the lever. Okay, and the first thing I wanted to do was to separate this what's known as the reject slide here, okay, from the actual lever itself, because I just wanted to be sure that there was nothing jammed down in here that was preventing this from moving. Okay, so it's that proverbial you know, working your way downstream, and you know, to the problem. Okay, we start at the source, upstream, work our way downstream, that kind of thing. Of course, in electronics too, a lot of times we work our way from downstream and work our way upstream, whatever the case, you know, that, you know, either or. But it's that proverbial upstream, downstream kind of thing. So starting at the source being our control knob here, control lever, I just wanted to make sure the problem wasn't down in here anywhere, that this wasn't jammed, okay, like I said. So removing the lever from the equation, you know, helped me to obviously determine that, and as you can see, not a problem there, nothing's jammed down in there. And of course, you know, let me just set the lever aside, that's not important at this moment. Next we have here this reject plate, okay, which pivots here, and you can see that, you know, if I remove this link, okay, that makes up the reject lever assembly that runs underneath the this main subplate here. Okay, if I remove this from the equation, okay, let me just get it out of the way. Obviously, as you can see, you know, everything's moving like it should here. Okay, and you know, not a big deal. Okay, so I'm just gonna remove this little link, get this link out of the way too. Okay, now what I'm pointing at here is actually what makes up the reject lever, okay, and that assembly that runs underneath this this main subplate. And what it does, or what it should be doing, and you know, again, it moves a little bit, but again, you know, something is jammed up under there. What it should be doing ultimately, the function that it carries out is when, and there's a couple functions I'm going to explain here, and I will kind of somewhat put it back together to demonstrate that. But ultimately what should happen, this reject lever here should engage this actuator slide here. There's a spring on the bottom of this actuator slide that kind of just sticks out from the bottom, that this reject lever here should engage and move this actuator here, this slide actuator, which engages with a Pawl, P-A-W-L, not P-A-U-L, like Paul. Okay, so let me change the battery on this camera real quick. It's flashing again. These batteries are starting to kind of get a little weak. I could tell I'm gonna have to get some new batteries. But anyways, let me do that real quick. Okay, so I'm back. Battery is swapped out, and here we go. I was saying that this this slide actuator here engages that Pawl on the main cam, and what happens there when this engages that Pawl, the Pawl pivots, and there's a point on that Pawl that will engage with a protrusion on the hub of the platter. Okay, there's some gears on the bottom of the hub, some gear teeth and all that. Now when that happens, it causes ultimately, in simple terms, the activation of that cam gear. Okay, and the cam gear, as it turns, will cause the tone arm to lift and set down on the vinyl. Okay, that's the simple explanation there. Okay, so I can tell you right now that that cam gear, that whole, you know, hub cam gear area, and the yeah, it's really just crappy with the lubrication. The lubrication has essentially turned to glue. I was able to move that cam a bit with my hand, but it was really hard at first. So there's just a lot of bad lubricant in here is the point, okay? It's just really crappy. So let me kind of just real quick just put this kind of back together here, and because I want to show you guys something else. And okay, let's put our reject slide back under here, and let's just pretend that this link here is attached right here. Okay, everything is attached and it's mated up all happy and harmoniously. Okay, so when this reject plate pivots here, this link here, the switch link, engages. Let me spin this around. Okay, I'm looking at the back of the camera, make sure I get this in frame. Yeah. Okay, so you can see that this link moves here and engages this switch lever, and the switch lever, you see that right there? It's closing the switch contact, which starts up the motor. Okay. Now that's the first position from stop. Right now, this slide is in the stop position. When we move it to the start position, okay, over here, should be right about the center, that pulls this link here, okay. When this link is attached to the plate, that pulls this this link, and like I just said, it moves this switch lever and engages the switch that you see here. Okay, you can see that switch moving. I think just by looking at the back of the camera, I can't really tell, but you get the point. Okay, so that's what's going on. So this this mechanism here, this assembly, has two functions pretty much. You know, first off, starting the platter rotating, starting the motor, and then as you you know, move the lever to auto, it of course goes through the process that I explained with the you know, the reject lever and the actuator slide and the, you know, the cam and the Pawl and the, you know, all those functions there, all those mechanisms that cause that tone arm to lift and set down on the vinyl. Okay, so I'm trying to keep it as short as possible, but still provide enough detail. So here's what I think is going on is the point. All right. Now I don't know for sure because I haven't really started getting into things. And one thing I want to say is that unfortunately, you know, in the first video I said, well, I'm not going to go deep into this and you know, really tear the mechanism apart and re-lubricate everything. I'm going to try to do what I can do on the surface here and just re-lubricate what I could on the surface, clean and re-lubricate what I could on the surface. It doesn't look like it's going to go that direction, okay? Because I think that there's obviously a deeper issue, and I was hoping that it was just something jammed up, you know, down here somewhere. It looks like I'm going to have to get in between the operating plate here. This is the operating plate. Get between it and the main subplate and analyze the mechanisms that I was kind of talking about. I think that it could be something in there. I tried to, you know, visualize underneath and all that, and I didn't notice anything right off the bat that was obvious. I didn't notice anything bent or whatever. It seems like for the most part things are kind of moving. You know, the feed lever here, and you know, we have some movement here. The actuator slide isn't totally bound up. You know, there's a little bit of movement here, but I think maybe deeper under here something might be a bit clogged up or whatever. Or also too, it could just be the area around the cam gear. When I pull that cam gear off, you know, I know it's going to look pretty bad under there with really degraded grease, lubricant, and all that. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But I'm going to start by removing this this plate here and kind of analyze the mechanisms and see what we have going on. Hopefully I explain that semi-clear or maybe very clear. And you know, again, let's just go ahead and get to it. This video is probably going to be one of those longer ones, but for those of you interested in working on these types of turntable mechanisms, this will probably prove useful. Another thing I want to say before we move on to the next phase is that, you know, I've mentioned this before, that it's wise to, you know, get your pencil or pen and paper, and as you're disassembling various layers of the mechanism, diagram things. Note where you know, springs are positioned and where levers are positioned, where how everything is positioned when you first discovered the underside. And in this day and age of the camera phone, everyone has a camera phone except for me. I don't. But
oh
I just, you know, if I need to snap some photos, I'll use a little digital camera. But the point is, you know, photo documenting the various mechanisms, the various layers, and all that is going to save your bacon. But anyways, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But just getting started, that's crucial that you do that, because service documentation is not going to walk you through, you know, as I say, hand in hand, and, you know, show you exactly where this little spring goes. Even the exploded parts diagrams will give you an idea, but they're not going to really get you deep into where every tiny thing goes and how it's supposed to be positioned and all that, okay? So anyways, that's that. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so I zoomed in a little closer here on this operating plate here and our feed lever here. Now what I'm doing here is I just decided to go ahead and show you how I'm breaking it down. So I removed this spring here, which just connects to this hole here. It just slots into this hole, okay? And I'm just going to leave this dangling here for now. And then I went ahead and removed this E-clip from this post here, okay? The spring, you know, there's a spring that goes on here first, and, you know, the E-clip snaps in place. You remove the E-clip, pull the spring off, lift this washer here, okay? And I'm gonna get all this stuff bagged up in just a moment, get everything cataloged. And some of you might be saying, what? Cataloged? What are you talking about? That sounds really detailed. Yes, absolutely. I've explained before that I use these little plastic baggies, and I get a marker and I write on them. I'm going to bag up the parts from this assembly, and I'm going to write on the bags, you know, that it's from the operating plate assembly and so forth. And the reason I do that, again, because I'm not going to be scratching my head later saying, oh, well, where does this go? Or reinstalling something incorrectly. And I don't care how experienced you are and all that, unless you work on these every single day, these, you know, and you're a BSR Turntableologist, and you can do it in your sleep, you're not going to remember where every single thing goes. It's just the way it is. So I like to catalog things, and you know, there's going to be some people that probably just that alone will be the reason why they give me a thumbs down or whatever. But I like to work very efficiently, very organized, and I suggest that if you're serious about doing this work, that you do the same or something similar, develop a system that works for you, along with your photo documenting, drawing little diagrams. You'll be a champion in the end, and you know, you're working like a pro and doing things, you know, preservationist style. You're working the way a preservationist, someone who specializes in restoration work, works. Okay. Instead of like a hack who just throws everything around. So anyways, that's that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and remove this spring here. Let me try to do this as careful as possible. Okay. And catch that spring. Lift it out like so. Okay. And then I have this E-clip here to remove. So let me do that off camera, and just before I lift the assembly off, I'll go ahead and tune back in. Okay, so let me lift this operating plate up here, and for right now, guys, I'm just going to set it off to the side over here. Okay, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a post here, a shaft if you will, that rides in the groove of that main cam down in here. We'll get into all that later. I'm just going to set this off to the side for now, and I'll go ahead and let me reposition this somewhat. Okay, so I want to focus in on this area here, okay, because again, here's our reject lever assembly. And this thing should be sliding and engaging with this. Where's my superhero pointer? It should be engaging with this spring on this this actuator slide that I was explaining to you folks a moment ago. Okay. So, anyways, let me answer that. Okay, I had to take that call real quick. But anyways, I want to concentrate in here at the moment and see what's going on here. It appears that there's something jammed up. So let me go ahead and check this out a little bit, and we'll kind of get into that. Okay, so here's what I found to be the problem. Now, you recall that what should be happening here is when this lever here, the rejection lever, or the, you know, the whole assembly, you know, we have the link here, we have the rejection lever that the link attaches to, and when we move the control lever that I pointed out earlier from where it is right now it's in the stop position. When it's slid over to the start position, this lever here should slide into this groove here. Okay, it should slide into this groove. It should go from stop here excuse me, to start. It's hard when it's everything's not attached and linked up together, but okay, moves from stop to start. Okay, and you remember there's that link right over here. Okay, this switch link that attaches to this rejection plate. Okay, when it's moved into that start position that I just demonstrated, that's when this switch link moves. It gets pulled inward, and that switch lever engages the switch and starts the motor. Okay, now let me come back up. Now, from the start position, when we move our lever over, our main lever, control lever, to the auto position, that's when this reject lever here slides forward the rest of the way, and you see it engaging the spring of the actuator slide when it slides forward, and that's when, you know, the tone arm will lift and set down on the vinyl. I explained that function already. So that being said, I found that this plastic washer here that should be sliding along that groove, it was literally glued in place. And I don't mean literally that somebody put glue in there, but the lubricant underneath the washer there was so badly degraded that it essentially turned into an adhesive. It was just stuck so bad that I had to pry the washer up, and so it was just frozen in place, in other words. So what I'm going to end up having to do is I'm going to try to clean up as much of this area now that I have the operating plate out of the way and I have you know, a little bit more open access. I'm going to go ahead and clean everything up with some cotton balls and cotton swabs and 99% anhydrous alcohol. I'm going to get everything cleaned. So anyways, there you go. That's what the problem was, and when I come back you'll see where I applied the grease, so let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so all of the mechanisms that I described earlier, whose functions I described as well, have been cleaned and re-lubricated. So let's go ahead and start with the you know, this control lever here, control knob, control lever. And right now it's in the stop position. I've applied a little bit, just a smear of lithium grease on the underside of it. And never mind this little pile here of deposited lithium grease. This, I just deposited it to the chassis there, so I can just dip my brush and work along. You can see I have a paper towel here. I just wipe off the excess and go about my business so I can do a clean job. And anyway, so there's a little bit of lithium grease under the slide here, and I also lubricated the posts here, are, you know, in other words, our pivot points where this rejection plate is situated, and everything is all reassembled. The link, this is our reject lever assembly, which runs underneath. We have this tab protruding upwards that engages the spring of this actuating slide here, as I explained earlier as well. So I had to end up moving this, what's referred to as a selector lever here. You know, there was some really degraded lubricant under it. It wasn't moving real well, so I pulled that off, got it all cleaned up, grease applied. And same thing with this cutoff lever here. Everything was lifted out. I had to do that anyways to get to the area of the reject lever that was seized up, as I pointed out, where that washer was situated, and it had basically turned to an adhesive. The grease had turned to glue. So all that's been cleaned, re-lubricated. So anyways, everything's looking good. Now from the main control lever here, right now it's in the stop position. Now go ahead and watch ultimately the tab here from this reject lever that engages the spring here of this actuating lever. So when I move it to the start position, also too, note the position of this link, this switch link that controls the switch lever over here. So when I pull this this control lever to the start position, okay, notice the reject lever here, this tab, where it stages. Okay, it stages right there, and then this switch link here pulled in and activated the switch lever, which in turn closed the contacts of the switch that start the motor. So at this point, that's the start position. Obviously, the motor would be running if everything was hooked up. Now, when I move the control lever to auto, note where this tab moves. Okay, see, there it goes. It engaged that spring and pushed that actuating lever forward. And as I explained earlier, that's what would have engaged the you know, the pawl and main cam, and it would have resulted in the lifting of the tone arm, and it would have set down on the vinyl, and we would have been in business, in like Flynn. So, and that's what it wasn't doing when this was all jammed up, seized up. So that's all resolved now. So what I'm going to do next is go ahead and clean up this operating plate here and this feed lever, which I have to, you know, still clean up a little bit, reapply some grease to, get this all repositioned, and then I'm going to go over to the other side, pull the main cam out, and get everything again cleaned and relubricated. And pretty much once that's done, and I, you know, pop the spindle back in and so forth, and just make sure that that hub area and everything, and you know, the main bearing there and all that is relubricated, we should be in business and ready to go. I'm pretty sure everything's going to fire up. The motor actually looks pretty clean. I was kind of looking around, you know, into the motor there, and everything looks pretty clean. I'm going to add just a couple drops of some machine oil on the bearing there, and that's about it. I think the motor's going to do just fine. But other than that, I anticipate this thing is going to fire up just fine. I mean, unless there is something, you know, horribly wrong with the motor, it's burned out or something like that, which I really doubt that to be the case. It was just, you know, this control lever here was just seized. So anyways, let me go ahead and move forward, and I'll come on back when we're around the other side there, and that's about it. So here we are on the top side. As you can see, the main cam is pulled, the actuator pawl is removed as well, and really it was a simple matter with this cam of just removing the E-clip here from this shaft here, and then the main cam just lifted right out. That's all there is to that. And then the actuator pawl mounts onto this post here, and I just remove this clip here, and it just lifts out. Okay, it just sets in there like so. And so not a big deal there. As anticipated, it's very dry down the center there. What little grease remains, and there's very little of it, it's very sticky, very degraded. And as far as, let me hold these clips with my fingers here, flip it around. Again, what little grease is on the back side is same thing, very sticky. You can see that most of this groove here is pretty much void of grease, and there's just a little bit of sticky remnant in there, and that's really about it. So, and I anticipated that much because it was really stiff when I was trying to move it around early on. And again, there's some remnants of grease around here that are just very sticky. It's more like glue than grease. And by the way, here's that actuator slide that we were talking about on the bottom. And yeah, obviously that's moving freely. You can see I have some grease in there, some new grease down, you know, down in there when I was underneath, relubricating everything. I'm just going to pack a little bit more grease in here where this bearing, where this slide rides on the little ball bearing there. I'm going to pack a little in there. Just clean up around here. Yeah, the spindle housing is all dried out, and same thing, I'm going to have to get some swabs down in there, maybe pipe cleaners, whatever, and clean everything out and just relubricate down in there before dropping the spindle in there. I'm going to repack this race bearing here with grease, and after that everything should be okay. I actually, off camera, I added a few drops of oil to the motor. The motor, by the way, here's the motor shaft, and it spins very well. I mean, it's still going and going, so it's spinning very free. I don't anticipate any problems whatsoever with the motor, unless there's something electrically wrong with it, something, you know, burned out, which I doubt if that's the case. So that's about it. I'm just going to clean up, do some lubrication again here, and that's about it. Next time I pop on in, I'm just going to do a quick demo. I'm not going to get into any adjustments and all that. If it needs some, I'll probably do them off camera as far as tone arm adjustments, messing around with all that. My main objective with this video was just to diagnose, troubleshoot that issue with the jammed control lever. So other than that, I'll be back momentarily with the final test. Okay, so here it is, and the only thing that I need to do is what I anticipated, and that is a few adjustments. In particular, the set down position of the tone arm. Sometimes it's a little bit funky, but nothing I can't resolve quickly, just a little bit of adjustment here and there. So anyways, what I'm going to do is just demonstrate the functionality now that I've resolved that issue. And like I said, this video is more for the purpose of just diagnosing that issue and resolving it, and that's been done. So anyways, let me go ahead and start it up. You remember the control lever here was seized up. That was the whole point of going in there and getting this thing resolved. Now let me slide it on down to auto and drop this piece of vinyl. And we'll see if the set down position is on target. Like I said, I'm probably going to have to mess with that a bit. And I'm just going to play a couple seconds of a few songs here and there. Okay. Yeah, it's a shame, you know, that I can't demonstrate a piece of vinyl longer, and you know, I understand the whole thing about copyright and whatnot, but you know, for my purpose, what I do in the shop, just demonstrating some equipment, it's not like I'm trying to you know, start up my own radio station and exploit these artists and all that stuff, you know, their work. But yeah, you know, it is what it is, so not much I can do about it. Okay. And we'll demonstrate the auto return here. And it'll set back down and shut off. Okay, so looking good. And like I said, other than the set down of the tone arm and that adjustment and so forth, everything is looking real good. I'm going to get this unit cleaned up, and then what's going to come to the bench next, because I want to get these a couple of combo units here out the door to the customer. The gentleman that I mentioned in the first video that owns a radio station here locally that brought me these units. So the next one on the bench is going to be that Sony HP485, and I demonstrated that one in the first video. We function tested it, went through it, and determined what is likely going to be you know, needed to resolve that issue too. And other than that, you know, this is it for this video. And like I always say, peace, love, rock and roll, and of course, vintage audio. You guys take care of yourselves. Until next time.
This is a poor man's shoe production.